No one is your friend. The raw truth when starting up and rising.
Let me share with you an undeniable truth, a fundamental reality that not a single soul, not one person truly wants to utter out loud, or even publicly acknowledge. Absolutely no one, under any circumstances, is truly your friend.
That sounds brutally harsh, doesn't it? A statement that might leave you feeling hurt, betrayed, or questioning everything. But trust me, it is the absolute core, the deepest essence of truth, an irrefutable fact in every facet of life. Especially during critical times, those pivotal phases when you are building something monumental, an empire, a groundbreaking vision. When you are facing countless trials, tribulations, and compounding difficulties, obstacles that seem insurmountable. When you are pouring every last resource, every ounce of energy, every fiber of your will to rise, to assert yourself, and to establish a firm foothold. In those initial, exhilarating days, as you first kindle your ideas, you'll find everyone around you flashing bright, friendly smiles. They will enthusiastically applaud incessantly for your most nascent ideas, your most budding plans. They will relentlessly utter, echoing in your ears, encouraging affirmations like, "You can do it. You're definitely going to succeed." They'll create a warm sensation, an illusion that the entire world is on your side, ready to support you unconditionally. But please, observe very carefully, very acutely what truly happens next, as the veil of illusion slowly lifts. The moment you start to grow in an extraordinary way, breaking through, far surpassing what they expected. When you begin to perform better than them, not just slightly, but distinctly, undeniably. Suddenly, everything will fall into an eerie silence, a stifling void. You won't just sense it, you'll clearly see jealousy creeping into their every glance, every gesture. Doubts, whispers, and negative judgments begin to germinate and spread. And an invisible, yet palpably distinct distance, a separating wall, gradually forms between you and those you once considered friends. I still remember vividly, as if it were yesterday, my initial hesitant steps on the arduous path of entrepreneurship. I was naive. I absolutely believed that my close friends would be my most fervent, most steadfast supporters.
I trusted that they would cheer me on, encourage me through every single tough stretch, every brutal challenge.
Indeed, a select few did. They stood by me, but only for a brief, certain period.
But when great sacrifices, painful trade-offs had to be made. When difficult, high-pressure, make-or-break decisions were compelled. Most of them quietly disappeared, without a single farewell, without a trace.
Do you ever wonder why this happens? Why do once close people turn their backs?
Because deep in their hearts, in their minds, they were never truly on my side altruistically, never truly for me. They were only there for the specific benefits they could derive from me, from my success or my potential.
Let's be painfully honest with each other. True friendships often fade surprisingly quickly.
Especially when each person's individual interests begin to clash intensely, when goals no longer align. It's very easy to maintain a friendship when nothing is at stake, when everything is smooth and favorable. When life flows peacefully, without competition, without financial or power pressures. But when your resounding success becomes a direct threat, a challenge to their comfort, to their current position, to their ego. Suddenly, you, the once close friend, become the sworn enemy in their eyes.
This is a painful transformation, a mental shock, yet it's a stark reality, an unavoidable law in this world. So, in this harsh reality, what must you do to survive and thrive? You need to stop holding on to wishful, illusory expectations of others. You need to stop weakly relying on the approval, the validation of anyone, any institution. You need to stop depending on someone else to believe in you, to motivate you. Instead, absolutely, unshakably trust in yourself, in your own capabilities and vision. Build a strong, solid team with talented, like-minded individuals. Establish strategic partnerships with clear, bilateral benefits.
But always keep your eyes wide open, observe keenly, and maintain a cool head, a rational heart. True loyalty will be tested most harshly, most clearly when you fail, when you stumble, when you lose everything. And even more intensely, demanding greater transparency, when you achieve a resounding victory, when you stand at the pinnacle of glory.
Do you truly believe that people will support your lofty dreams simply because they genuinely like you, because of personal affection? No, absolutely not. That is a dangerous illusion. Humans, by nature, always support what works, what is beneficial, what can be exploited. If your dream has the potential for high profitability, clear benefits, and great potential, they will line up, jostling to contribute, to be part of your success. If it fails, if it yields no value or benefit, they will disappear without a trace, without a word of farewell, faster than a shadow. This is not pessimism about life, about people. This is the unchangeable nature of business, of the competitive market. This is raw reality, a painful but undeniable truth of life.
And strangely enough, this is also true freedom, a liberation of the spirit. Because when you fully accept, fully internalize that no one, in any relationship, is truly your friend, you will stop chasing superficial applause, false compliments. You will begin to build everything in silence, with absolute focus, undistracted by external factors. You will make wiser, sharper decisions, based on reason and data. You will become dangerous in a positive, formidable way. Not because you are a cold, emotionless, heartless person, but because you possess absolute clarity in thought and action, a vision unclouded by emotions. So next time you feel profoundly lonely on your journey, facing the storm alone, when you feel the burden on your shoulders is too immense, stiflingly heavy, remember this clearly, engrave it into your mind. Not a single soul is truly your friend. But that is precisely how true winners are made, are forged in this harsh and challenging business world. Emotions in business, the silent and terrifying danger. The harsh and unforgiving reality that we face every single day is this. Emotions, personal feelings, have the capacity to completely and mercilessly destroy what logic has meticulously built, what it has carefully calculated. When you make crucial, strategic decisions based on impulse and momentary emotions, driven by personal likes or dislikes, instead of based on intelligence, reason, objective analysis, factual data, and strategic foresight, you are setting yourself up for an extremely disadvantageous position, a weak stance, guaranteeing failure, total defeat in every game. It doesn't matter how passionately, how zealously you are committed to your idea or project. It doesn't matter how long that person has been loyal and devoted to you, whether from day one or for a long history. Or how good that relationship was, how warm it was in the past, whether you were best friends or effective collaborators. If you allow personal emotions to take the dominant position, the driver's seat of every decision, you will inevitably crash into the wall, shattering into pieces, failing miserably beyond recovery. Business, by its very nature, is not a personal or emotional matter. It is entirely focused on the true core value that you create. Work performance, the actual capabilities of each individual. Strategic timing, the acute grasp of opportunities. And the ability to leverage, to optimize resources in the most effective way. The moment you begin to mix personal emotions, private affections with work execution and business strategy formulation, you are inadvertently granting power, handing over the keys to elements that have no place, do not belong in a smart, sharp, and effective strategy. You will make serious, hard-to-correct mistakes in personnel recruitment. Simply because that person is your close friend, an old acquaintance, a familiar face. You will unreasonably, against all logic, keep an unproductive, ineffective employee. Just because she has been with you since those difficult early days, from your very first hesitant steps. You will refuse to fire someone even if they fail to meet job requirements. Simply because you see them trying very hard, putting in maximum effort, even if the results are not as desired. But remember one harsh truth, none, absolutely none, of that pays the bills, none of that helps the company stay afloat. None, absolutely none, of that builds a scalable, sustainably developing company that can stand firm in a competitive market. You might tell yourself, reassuring yourself, but I deeply care, I truly cherish my people, those I work with. That is a good quality, a commendable virtue that should be encouraged in life. But remember, business, the market, does not care at all about your feelings, about your personal relationships. The market does not offer any discounts, any preferential treatment just because you are kind-hearted, benevolent, or compassionate. Your competitors will not slow down for a single second, will not pause at all just because you are sentimental, full of emotions. The moment you lose your competitive edge, lose your sharpness. Surely someone else will immediately seize your market share, devouring what you have built. Most people do not truly understand, do not grasp the exorbitant cost, the disastrous consequences of making emotional decisions in business. Not until everything becomes too late to salvage, too late to correct the mistakes. They let guilt prevent them from cutting unnecessary expenses, from eliminating wasteful investments. They let personal pride and oversized ego hinder them from making crucial strategic changes, necessary turning points. They continue to maintain partnerships that are draining their energy, resources, and spirit. All due to blind emotional attachment, an invisible but tightly binding chain. These emotionally driven decisions are not perceived as mistakes or flaws at the moment they are made. They are often cleverly rationalized under the guise of loyalty, steadfastness to the relationship. Or simply as humanity, tolerance, understanding of people. But just 6 months later, when everything becomes clearer. When money runs out, finances are depleted, the company is on the verge of bankruptcy. Or a golden business opportunity is lost forever, irretrievable. Those very same people will painfully call it utter regret, a mistake that cannot be undone by turning back time. Being emotional, knowing how to love, to feel joy and sorrow, does not make you weak or incompetent in life. But allowing emotions to dominate, to steer crucial business decisions will make you extremely vulnerable, easily exploited, and prone to failure. Emotions make you react passively, slowly instead of acting decisively and promptly. They make you cling to what you should have let go of long ago, burdens that are no longer suitable. They make you trust blindly, without proper verification when you should have thoroughly verified information, question everything. They make you only hope vaguely when you should have acted decisively, with clear plans. A successful founder once shared a painful and insightful story. I didn't fire my co-founder, a close friend. Even though I knew clearly, saw plainly that he was killing our company, destroying everything we had built. Simply because we were best friends, people who had overcome so many difficulties together. By the time he realized his mistake and decided to act, the damage was too great, too severe, and irreversible. The company lost potential investors, golden opportunities that could not be retrieved. Missed crucial product deadlines, losing its competitive edge. And almost collapsed entirely, reduced to nothing. Why did this happen? Why was such a big mistake allowed to persist? Because he fatally confused close friendship with accountability and actual work capability. The harsh market didn't care if they were friends or how close they were. Customers didn't care that it was an emotional decision, a choice based on sentiment. All that mattered to the market and customers was the ability to deliver, the ability to execute, the ability to provide value. And they failed miserably in that regard, unable to meet expectations. Loyalty and performance, the truth behind business relationships. This is not just an isolated story, an exceptional case, it happens every single day, repeatedly in every industry, every business. People seriously confuse personal loyalty with actual work performance and ability to contribute. They assume that a person with willpower, with a desire to win is the same as a person who actually has the ability to win and deliver results. They often choose comfort, safety, and familiarity instead of confronting harsh truths, difficult decisions. They avoid conflict, delaying direct confrontation, thinking it's a sign of kindness, tact, or agreeableness.
But in reality, they are merely postponing a necessary decision, an unavoidable action, making the problem worse over time.
Emotionally driven leaders, whose judgment is clouded by feelings, often make the worst, most erroneous decisions.
Not because they are bad people, ill-intentioned, or dishonest,
but because they are not trained, lack the skills to separate their heart from the ultimate outcome, to make objective judgments. They lack the ability to put emotions aside and make objective, rational decisions, based on data and goals.
In a crucial, fate-determining negotiation for the company.
If you let anger flare up, if you lose your composure, you will lose valuable negotiation leverage, lose control of the situation. If you become overly excited, overly enthusiastic, overly optimistic, you will inadvertently reveal your desperation, your weakness. If you allow personal emotions, private feelings to dictate price, timeline, or partnership terms, the other side will immediately recognize your weakness and ruthlessly exploit it. Business is a game of leverage, power, and skillful control. And emotions will erode your leverage faster than anything else, faster than even fierce competition. Ask yourself a pivotal question, a question that goes straight to the heart of the matter. Do you want to be liked by everyone, to be admired, to be surrounded by compliments, or do you want to achieve resounding success, reach ambitious goals, and create real value? Because in most cases, you cannot have both at the same time, cannot achieve both objectives. To be respected, to gain a firm position in the business world, often requires you to make extremely difficult decisions, painful choices. It means firing good people, well-intentioned individuals who are simply not suitable for the job, not delivering results. It means decisively saying no to attractive, seemingly lucrative opportunities that carry high risks, not aligning with long-term strategy. And it means cutting ties with people you once considered family, close brethren, but whose interests no longer align. These decisions can cause great pain, emotional distress in the short term, at that very moment. But they protect and ensure sustainable growth, the long-term survival of the business, for a prosperous future. This doesn't mean you should become cold, emotionless, or inhuman like a robot. Instead, it means you need to possess iron emotional discipline, strong self-control. You need to know precisely when to feel, when to listen to your heart, and when to make a rational, objective decision, based on data. Business always rewards clarity, transparency, and coherence in thought and action, not confusion, ambiguity, or emotional impulse. The more clear and highly focused your mind is, the more accurate and effective your judgments will be, yielding desired results. Emotions cloud judgment, distort reality. They distort the perception of risk, making you misjudge danger. They blind you to dangerous red flags, warning signs. They make you cling to what you should have let go of long ago, burdens that are no longer suitable. Pursue what you should have avoided, things that waste time and resources. And delay what should have been done immediately, without hesitation. Friendship and business, a lesson in aligned interests and constant change. Most people believe that true friendships are built to last forever, never fading. That's what we are often taught from childhood, within our families and schools. Loyalty as firm as a rock. Unconditional support, without calculation. Absolute trust, without doubt. It sounds incredibly beautiful, an idealistic and poetic vision. But step into this harsh, competitive, and challenging business world. And that idea will be tested quickly, mercilessly, and unforgivingly. The moment money, profit, personal finance. Control over power, position within the organization. Personal recognition, reputation. Or even the survival of the business, the very existence of the company enters the equation, becoming the decisive factor. Friendships begin to wobble violently, no longer as firm as before. They shake intensely, creating invisible but deep cracks. Shatter into pieces. And often collapse completely, dissolving beyond repair. Not because people are inherently evil, malicious, or dishonest. But because each person's individual interests change constantly, ceaselessly.
And when interests change,
people also change along with them, in both thought and action. You can grow up with someone from early childhood, sharing every joy and sorrow. Go through bankruptcies, crushing debts, having nothing left. Even build something from scratch, from nothing, with all your heart and soul. But the moment what you want, your goals and what they want, their goals are no longer in sync, no longer aligned, no longer headed in the same direction.
Conflict will immediately arise, inevitably. It's not a personal issue, a grudge, or a private dispute. It's a structural problem, a misalignment in the very nature of the business relationship. Because in business, everything is not about emotions or personal feelings, past attachments. It's about position, power, influence. The ultimate outcome, the profit achieved. And the ability to control, the ability to make decisions. Here's what most people often fail to understand, do not grasp its critical importance. Alignment of interests and goals is everything, it is the lifeblood. Two people can be close friends, inseparable for 10 years. But if one wants to scale the business rapidly, boldly, accepting risks, and the other wants to play it safe, move slowly, being maximally cautious, that relationship will not last, it will certainly collapse. If one wants to reinvest all profits back into the company for long-term growth, and the other wants to cash out for personal enjoyment, to spend as they please, that relationship will also not be sustainable, unable to go the distance. You'll start to see tension clearly on the surface, in every glance. Resentment simmering, and underlying discomfort. Passive aggression, sarcastic remarks, subtle actions. And finally, open, clear, undeniable betrayal. It often starts with small things, seemingly harmless signs. One friend begins to make more decisions without consulting the other, acting unilaterally. One person wants more credit, more recognition, more money, more benefits, more say, more power in everything. Suddenly, the energy in the relationship changes, becoming heavier. Meetings become colder, more tense, and less open. Communication between the two parties slows down, becomes difficult, and filled with suspicion. You realize that you are no longer aligned with them, no longer on the same wavelength. Not in shared vision, grand goals. Not in core values, ethical principles. Not in drive and aspiration to rise. And that is precisely where the friendship begins to slowly but surely die. Initially, you still believe you can fix everything, can mend what's broken. You tell yourself, we've known each other for a very long time, we've been through so many ups and downs. We'll find a way to work it out, we'll get through it. But remember, business has no memory of the past, no personal feelings or favoritism. It only rewards actual work performance, concrete results, and alignment of goals, of strategy. If your interests are not in sync, not heading in the same direction, no longer compatible, your business will suffer and incur heavy losses, unable to grow sustainably. If you try to force things to work just to preserve a friendship that is no longer suitable, that has become a burden, you will lose twice, in a painful and irreparable way. First, your business will collapse, disintegrate. Then, the friendship will also fall apart, with nothing left to cling to. When interests clash, the truth behind justifications and betrayal. And here's the part that no one wants to openly discuss, no one dares to confront directly. When personal interests clash intensely, irreconcilably, people will justify anything, use any excuse to protect themselves, to cover up their actions. The very person who once stood by you, supported you, was your emotional anchor, will now say things like, I deserve more, I sacrificed more. Or I was always the one doing the real work, carrying all the heavy lifting. Or even a subtly accusatory remark, you have changed, you're not the same anymore. And perhaps you truly have changed, grown, evolved. Perhaps they have also changed, developed new goals. But that's not the crucial point, not the main issue. The point is when interests are no longer aligned,
no longer in sync, no longer heading towards a common goal.
Even the most beautiful memories, the deepest recollections cannot keep the team together, cannot hold people back.
This doesn't just happen with co-founders who once shed sweat and tears together, or business partners who signed contracts together.
It happens with long-term employees who dedicated their youth.
With anyone in a corporate environment where personal interests are threatened.
At some point, one of you will want something different, a new direction.
To want more money, more assets.
To want less work, less burden.
To want to exit the business faster, to seek freedom sooner.
To want a bigger role, more power within the organization. To want a stronger voice, to be heard more. That's when it becomes clear that
the relationship was never solely about pure friendship, about disinterested emotions.
But it was about what that friendship could provide and offer, about tangible value.
And once it stops providing that value, stops bringing specific benefits, people will decisively walk away, without hesitation or regret.
Some people don't even walk away explicitly, transparently.
They choose to sabotage subtly, acting in the shadows.
They remain within the organization.
But they start playing internal politics, forming factions. Whispering negative remarks, spreading toxic rumors.
Withholding crucial information, not sharing knowledge. Undermining your authority, hindering your work.
They become silent obstacles, invisible blockers instead of open allies, genuine friends.
And you sit there, still naively wondering, but we're friends, why is this happening? No.
You were friends until your paths and interests diverged, heading in completely different directions. Friendship is easily maintained when things are equal, when there's no significant imbalance. When no pressure weighs heavily on the relationship. When there's no scoreboard to compare achievements, to determine winners and losers.
But when it's time to make difficult and heartbreaking decisions, brutal choices.
When someone has to assume the highly responsible, powerful CEO position.
When equity has to be distributed fairly, transparently. When responsibilities must be clearly defined and seriously borne.
That's when the raw truth emerges, the true nature of people is exposed.
Self-reliance, the foundation of an unshakable spirit in all circumstances.
People reveal their true selves, their deepest nature when personal interests are severely threatened, when they feel a sense of loss.
This is why mature and wise entrepreneurs, those with foresight, always prioritize protecting the business above all else, above all personal relationships. They do not mix roles, do not allow boundaries to blur without clear, transparent lines and specific rules. They put everything in writing, meticulously documenting, even with their closest friends, their longest-standing partners. They understand that clear structure, transparent processes, and rigid rules will preserve relationships better than any emotion or personal affection ever could. Because when interests clash intensely, irreconcilably,
the only thing that can hold everything together, maintain stability, is clarity, transparency in all terms, not blind loyalty or personal sentiment. You'll hear similar stories, familiar scenarios all the time, in every industry, every field.
Best friends, soulmates, turning into sworn enemies, refusing to speak. Business partners who once built together, now haven't spoken in years.
One person suing the other over a broken deal, over conflicting interests.
These are not rare or exceptional cases, unusual occurrences.
They are recurring patterns, harsh rules in business.
The root cause is almost always the same, revolving around one point. Interests have changed, no longer aligning.
And no one was honest enough, brave enough to admit it early, to face the truth.
Instead of renegotiating terms, agreements openly.
They avoided conflict, evaded confronting the issue. They let it fester, smolder like a disease, becoming increasingly severe. And when it exploded, when everything fell apart, the friendship could not survive that painful aftermath, could not be repaired.
That's not pessimism, bitterness about life.
That's the unchanging nature of the business game.
And the game doesn't care at all how close you once were, what memories you shared. When everything goes wrong, when all plans collapse, when you're at rock bottom, and it surely will happen at some point in life, most people will desperately look around, searching for someone to save them, to rescue the situation. They call friends, begging for help. They blame circumstances, fate, external factors. They hope someone will appear with advice, guidance. With money, financial resources. With a solution, a way out, anything that can salvage the situation, however fragile. But the truth is, in life and in business, a stark reality. No one is obligated to fix your problems, no one is responsible for your failures. No one stays up at night, tossing and turning, thinking about how to rescue you from your difficulties, from the quagmire you're stuck in. That is your job, your mission. That is your complete, undeniable responsibility. You are your own sole backup plan, your ultimate option. The faster you accept that no one is coming to save you, no hand will reach out to pull you up. The stronger you become, more resilient, unconquerable. This is not about becoming negative, pessimistic about life, about people. It's about becoming unshakable, unmovable, unbreakable. It's about developing a mindset, a spirit, where your survival, your existence, your success, your lofty goals, your ability to recover, your capacity to rise after a fall, all of it rests in your hands, within your control. Not your parents, not support from family. Not your mentors, not advice from predecessors. Not your partners, not the companionship of collaborators. But your own, independently and autonomously. People will say they have your back, they're always on your side. Sometimes they genuinely mean it, those words come from kindness. But when things get real, when facing the toughest challenges, when money is tight, finances are depleted, when failure is clearly imminent, undeniable, when the situation becomes extremely uncomfortable, stressful, and demands sacrifice, they will quietly disappear, without warning, without a trace. Not because they hate you, not because they have ill intentions, but because they have their own problems, their own burdens, their own fires to put out, their own personal battles, their own personal risks, things they need to protect. And if helping you threatens their comfort, their safety, or their interests, they will choose themselves every single time, without hesitation. That's not betrayal or ingratitude, a malicious act. That's human nature, a harsh law of survival. Therefore, stop building your safety net out of other people, out of fragile relationships. Stop naively expecting that someone else will intervene, will step in when things get tough, when you need help the most. Start building your practical skills, core competencies that can create value. Start building emotional resilience sustainably, and iron will. Start building self-discipline, self-motivation to handle every problem, every obstacle yourself. Overcoming it yourself, the only path to independence and self-sufficiency. If your business fails, if everything collapses, learn how to start over from scratch, from zero, without resentment, without blaming anyone. If a deal collapses unexpectedly, if a plan fails, figure out how to create a new deal, a new plan, and a better one, learning from mistakes. If you are deceived by someone you trusted, betrayed your trust, learn how to keep moving forward, relentlessly, without their support, without letting them hinder your progress. People often talk about having plan A and plan B, contingency plans. But most people's plan B is simply hoping someone will come to save them, will appear as a savior. That's not a real plan, a viable strategy. That's just wishful thinking, a dangerous and unrealistic illusion. Your only, solid plan B needs to be you. Your own resourcefulness, your ability to adapt in any situation. Your own creativity, your ability to find new solutions. And your own flexible ability to pivot when everything falls apart, when all plans fail.
There will be days when you feel abandoned, utterly alone, as if the whole world has turned its back. When people ignore your calls, no one answers. When investors suddenly pull out, abandoning you in difficulty. When friends suddenly become too busy to help, have no time for you. In those moments, those darkest hours, the only thing you'll have is what's in your head, your knowledge and experience, and what's in your heart, your will and determination.
Your vast knowledge, lessons accumulated. Your relentless grit, your never-give-up spirit.
And your ability to think clearly, sharply when everything is a mess, when all is in chaos.
That's why you cannot afford to be emotionally fragile, cannot easily collapse.
You must be your own solid support system, your sole emotional anchor before you ever expect anyone else to show up to help.
And even when people do show up, when they offer a hand,
when they help you overcome difficulties,
when they offer advice, valuable guidance, when they support you with concrete actions,
be sincerely grateful, from the bottom of your heart.
But never become dependent on them, never let yourself be bound.
Because help is temporary, limited in time and condition.
Encouragement is also temporary, an unstable source of motivation.
The true engine behind your recovery, your ability to rise strongly. Your growth, your significant progress. And your major breakthroughs, your resounding successes, will always come from within, from yourself. When the dust settles, when everything becomes clear. The only person standing by you 100% of the time, never abandoning you, is you, your most resilient version.
Trust in business, a precious and priceless currency.
This world does not owe you support or assistance, no one is obligated to help you.
It only rewards those who support themselves first, those who are self-reliant.
You must be your own motivator, your relentless driving force, when no one believes in you, when everyone turns their back. Your own strategist, the one who charts the course, when plans collapse, when things don't go as desired. Your own ardent cheerleader, the one who brings hope, when the silence becomes too loud and crushing, when you feel desperate.
No one can do the internal work, the spiritual training for you. No one can train your mind, sharpen your thinking for you.
No one can make you recover faster, rise stronger, except yourself. People often waste years, squandering their youth waiting for a lifeline, a golden opportunity, that never comes. They wait for the perfect timing, the most opportune moment. The ideal partner, the one who can accompany them to the end. The lucky call, a windfall from the sky. But time does not stop for a single second while you wait, it just keeps flowing.
Opportunities move on, never to return. People continue with their lives, not waiting for you.
And if you are not prepared to continue moving forward on your own, to rise independently,
you will be left behind, lonely and defeated. One of the most common, most dangerous mistakes people make,
especially in the challenging and competitive business environment, is assuming that trust comes automatically, without needing to be built or verified. They believe that just because someone smiles kindly, appears amiable,
nods in agreement with all your ideas,
or shares a few common goals, initial aspirations, that person is trustworthy, a true friend. But trust is not a given, it's not a free gift. It's not based on how long you've known someone, however long.
Social titles, position in the company,
or even shared history, beautiful memories from the past. Trust is earned through consistent behavior, concrete and valuable actions.
Actual results, quantifiable achievements.
And steadfastness, reliability under pressure, in difficult situations. You don't trust others just because they say the right and sweet things, make grand promises. You trust others because they do the right and meaningful things, actions that bring value. Especially when no one is watching or supervising, when they act in silence. In the business world, words are cheap, meaningless.
Promises are easily made, requiring no effort. And commitments mean nothing without consistent execution and follow-through, without ultimate results. Everyone sounds good, everyone appears excellent when risks are low, when everything is smooth.
Everyone demonstrates integrity, honesty in the first meeting, in the early days. The real test comes when money is involved, when material interests are affected.
When decisions become incredibly difficult, stressful, and demand sacrifice. And when circumstances change constantly, creating major shifts.
People are often surprised and deeply disappointed because they place their trust in someone too quickly, too easily.
A co-founder speaks eloquently, paints a beautiful vision, then disappears when it's time to execute, when action is needed. A new hire impresses greatly in interviews, showing enthusiasm, then only delivers excuses, vague reasons, instead of work results.
An investor says they are fully committed, pledges funds, then disappears without a trace as numbers start to dip, as the market fluctuates.
And each time, people lament, painfully saying, "But I trusted them, why did they do this?"
That is the core problem. You trusted too soon, you placed your trust incorrectly.
Building trust, a continuous journey demanding transparency. Trust is not a blanket you throw over someone just because you like them, because you have feelings. It's not a favor, a free gift, or an act of charity. It's a precious currency, an intangible asset that needs to be accumulated. You don't hand it out freely and then hope for the best. You need to meticulously observe how people act, how they cope with situations. You study their habits, their repetitive behaviors. And you watch how they handle pressure, how they react in difficult situations. You give them small opportunities, simple tasks, and see what they do with them, how they complete them. Then, over time, based on what they've shown, you decide if they have earned more trust. Even in long-term relationships, relationships that have been built for a very long time. Trust must be maintained and continuously strengthened, relentlessly. Just because someone was loyal last year, at that time, doesn't mean they are loyal now, at this moment. Just because they did the right thing once, in a specific situation, doesn't mean they will do it again, will continue to be correct. People change, goals change. Motivations change constantly, ceaselessly. And pressure always reveals true character, the true face of each person. That's why smart leaders, those with far-reaching vision, always meticulously observe every move. Always carefully evaluate every behavior and result. Not out of paranoia or blindly distrusting everyone. But because of hard-won experience, lessons paid for with sweat and tears. Blind trust, trust not based on verification, is not a strength. It is a heavy obligation, a dangerous weakness, an unnecessary burden. It opens the door to being manipulated, exploited, led astray. Being ruthlessly taken advantage of. And being put in a situation of catastrophic failure, unable to recover. That's how people lose control of their companies, lose their initiative. Lose key deals, golden opportunities. And lose momentum, lose their competitive edge. They trusted someone because it felt right, because of momentary emotion. Not because that person had truly earned trust through action and results. You don't need to become cold, emotionless, or extremely cynical, distrusting everyone. You just need to be clear, transparent, and realistic. Clear that trust is not something you give away easily, not a free gift. It is something people have to work hard for, have to strive to earn, have to prove their worth. And the same applies to you. If you want people to trust you, to build their trust, don't just talk about how reliable you are, don't just make empty promises. Prove it with concrete actions, with actual results. Show up early, on time, demonstrating professionalism. Perform work consistently, tirelessly, exactly as promised. Handle conflict maturely, skillfully, without letting emotions dominate. And take responsibility for your mistakes, not blaming others. That's how trust is built solidly, sustainably from both sides, from real interaction. Think of trust like a personal credit score, a crucial indicator of reliability. No one gets a loan, a large sum of money, without a good credit score, a transparent financial history. In business, trust is your score, the indicator that determines your success. And just like credit, it doesn't matter what you say, what you promise. What matters is what your record and track record say about you, what you've actually done. Can you be relied upon under pressure, in difficult situations? Do you follow through on your promises when things are tough, when there are obstacles? Can people rely on your silence, your prudence, as much as your words, your public commitments? These are the crucial criteria, the key indicators for evaluating trust. Too many people assume that trust can be transferred from one person to another, from one relationship to another. They think, my friend trusts this person, so I can trust them without verification. That's a shortcut to disaster, a dangerous path full of risks. Just because someone is referred, has a recommendation, doesn't mean they have earned your trust. You still have to conduct your own thorough due diligence, research them meticulously. You still have to put them through the same filtering process, evaluate them carefully. Otherwise, you're not managing risk, you're not mitigating danger. You are gambling with your destiny, with your success. Even within teams, within the organization. Even within the so-called most trusted circles, the closest associates. Trust is never automatic, it doesn't just happen naturally. The moment you stop observing people cutting corners, doing sloppy work. The moment you stop checking and supervising the quality of work. Standards will immediately decline, quality will drop. The best working environments are built on clear, transparent accountability, not assumptions or blind trust. People perform better when they know their actions are noticed, measured, and expected to meet a certain standard. The leader's path, loneliness is an inevitable part of the journey to the pinnacle of glory. Trust, when earned correctly and deservedly, when built solidly, becomes incredibly powerful, creating astonishing momentum. It creates rapid speed in work, in decision-making. It eliminates friction and all unnecessary obstacles, making things flow smoothly. And it builds deep loyalty, a lasting bond. But if you skip this process, bypass the necessary steps, and assume trust from the start, you're not building a solid team, a cohesive unit. You are building a ticking time bomb, a potential danger. When you decide to pursue something greater than personal comfort, exceeding all current limits. When you commit to building an empire, a grand vision. Developing yourself to the highest level. Leading a team to success. Or breaking old molds, traditional patterns. You will quickly realize something that most people never talk about, never openly share. It becomes profoundly lonely, a solitude that envelopes you. Not because people hate you, not because they have ill intentions. Not because you deliberately isolate yourself from society. But because the higher you go, the further you reach, the fewer people understand the immense burden and pressure you carry on your shoulders. Everyone wants success and glory, to be admired and applauded. But no one talks about the frightening silence that comes with it, the quiet absence of those around you. The long nights when you are the only one still working, still wrestling with thoughts, still striving. The decisions you have to make all alone, with no one to share the burden. Because no one else sees what you see, no one has your vision. The deep conversations, the sincere sharing you cannot have. Because the people around you are operating at a different level of urgency, a completely different frequency of thought, of hunger, of motivation. And a completely different vision. Initially, everyone will be around you, surrounding you. Friends will cheer you on, offering words of encouragement. Family will support you, being an emotional pillar. You'll have people to talk to confide in. People who nod in agreement with all your ideas, all your plans. But the moment your pace of development accelerates dramatically, when you make a powerful breakthrough, they will start to gradually fall away, disappearing from view. You work hard, tirelessly, while they party, enjoy themselves.
You invest boldly, taking risks, while they spend freely, without thinking of the future. You evolve constantly, adapting to change, while they remain stagnant, refusing to grow. Gradually, your world separates entirely from theirs.
Not out of arrogance, not because you want to detach, but out of absolute necessity, an essential requirement of the path you've chosen. The path you are on, the path to the summit, no longer has much room for passengers who just want a ride, who don't want to contribute. The loneliness of growth, a trade-off for rising and asserting yourself. People don't talk about the emotional cost, the mental toll of growth and advancement. The birthdays you miss, the holidays you can't attend. The weekends you have to give up, dedicating them entirely to work. The relationships that gradually fade, old friends drifting apart. Because you no longer fit into the old conversations, mundane topics. You begin to feel deeply misunderstood, no one truly comprehends you. Not because you are better or smarter than others, but because you are moving on a different trajectory, at a different speed. You see through things that they are still blindly pursuing, illusions. You avoid things that they still desire, traps. And so, the distance between you and them grows wider, becoming difficult to bridge. It becomes lonely when you cannot share your difficulties. The immense pressures, the unnamed burdens you are carrying. Without someone telling you to take a break, relax, give up halfway. It becomes lonely when you cannot talk about your great victories. Without someone calling you lucky or coincidental, denying your efforts. It becomes lonely when you have outgrown your old circle, surpassed old limits, but haven't yet found your next, more suitable circle, new companions. And that is precisely where most people break down and give up, abandoning their dreams. Not because of failure, not because they lack ability, but because of the terrible isolation that comes with progress and success, a gnawing loneliness. This climb separates you from the crowd, from familiar faces. It forces you into rooms where you are the least experienced, the smallest, least connected, with few relationships, and least understood, with no one empathizing. You walk into meetings, places of power, and no one cares about your past or your old achievements, they only care about the present. You present your vision, groundbreaking ideas, and people stare blankly, comprehending nothing, offering no feedback. You lead people who don't see what you see, who don't share your vision, and bear the immense responsibility and pressure when they don't show up on time, don't complete tasks. You are expected to always remain strong, resilient, even when you are unsure what comes next, when everything is uncertain. This is the part that no one applauds, no public recognition. The phase where there is no spotlight or public attention. Only absolute silence, a tranquil space. Constant self-doubt, endless questions about yourself. And relentless pressure to keep moving forward, ceaselessly. When nothing feels certain or secure, when everything is uncertain. And you still keep climbing, relentlessly. Not because you enjoy this loneliness, not because you want to be separate, but because your grand vision, your lofty goals, are more important than any comfort or familiarity. Because stopping now would mean betraying everything you started and sacrificed, betraying your own true dream. Most people give up not because the path is too difficult, too many obstacles, but because it is too lonely, with too few companions. They miss the comfort of being understood, of being empathized with. The ease of having people around who agree with them, without argument. The warmth of belonging somewhere, a community. So, they slow down, they reduce their pace. They shrink their dreams to fit their current environment, so as not to stand out. They settle, accepting a mediocre life. All just to feel less lonely, to blend in with the crowd. And they call it maturity, balance, peace. But deep down, they know they have abandoned that great climb, abandoned their true dream. Standing strong alone, the victor's path and true resilience. You will lose many people on your way up, on the journey to conquer the summit. Some will voluntarily leave, without needing an explanation.
Some you will be forced to let go of, to sever relationships to move forward. Some will quietly fade into oblivion, leaving no trace.
And it will be painful, emotionally agonizing, and unavoidable loss.
But each new level of success, each new step forward, requires a new version of you, a stronger person.
And not everyone is destined to meet that version, to accompany you.
Growth demands its own space, a space for you to freely develop.
It demands solitude, moments alone for reflection.
It demands that you confront parts of yourself that were hidden when you were always surrounded by others, by social connections. No one tells you how heavy it is, how difficult it is, when you are the only one with the vision. The one carrying the pressure, the burden of every decision. The one making great sacrifices, personal trade-offs.
And accepting all risks, all uncertainties. While others just watch from a safe distance, not bearing responsibility. There will be days when you will question everything, question yourself.
Days when giving up feels much easier, an attractive option, compared to continuing alone, facing difficulties. But that is the nature of the climb, the essence of the journey upwards.
The air gets thinner, the environment becomes harsher.
The noise gets quieter, distractions decrease.
And the path narrows the higher you go, the closer you get to the summit. Ultimately, the journey to the top is yours alone, a solitary but grand journey. People will walk beside you when it is convenient for them, when there is personal benefit.
But the moment your path threatens their comfort,
their ego, their self-esteem,
or their personal interests, what they currently hold, they will choose themselves without hesitation, without a word of explanation.
That doesn't make them evil or malicious.
It makes them human, with instincts for survival and self-preservation.
In business. In life.
In any arena where risks are real, tangible, and outcomes truly matter, have great significance. Friendships are very fragile and easily broken, easily fractured by pressure.
Emotions, feelings. Trust, reliability. Loyalty, attachment.
These are powerful things, with great influence. But they are not eternal or immutable, they can change and vanish at any time.
When goals conflict, when personal interests clash. When money is on the negotiation table, when finances are affected.
When everything collapses, when you stand at the precipice.
You will quickly realize that no one is your friend unless it benefits them, unless they also gain from that relationship.
That's why you must build everything with your eyes always wide open, observing keenly, and all expectations closed, placing no hope in others.
Respect everyone, treat them fairly. Collaborate closely, effectively.
Lead with integrity and honesty, setting an example for others. But never assume that anyone owes you loyalty, owes you support.
Trust must be earned continuously and persistently, through action and results. Interests must align consistently, in every stage.
And when they no longer align, when goals are no longer shared, be ready to stand alone, to face everything by yourself. Strategically, making independent decisions. Emotionally, overcoming mental difficulties on your own.
And financially, being self-sufficient and economically independent.
Your resilience, your ability to recover, is your true and most sustainable partner. Your discipline, your self-motivation, and relentless effort, is your most reliable support. The clarity in your thinking, your sharp mind and vision, is your true guiding compass. Everything else can change and shift, nothing is eternal.
When things go wrong, when you stumble. Not your network of contacts, however extensive. Your co-founder, however closely tied you once were. Or your old friends, however many memories you shared. They will not save you. Instead, it is the strong, resilient, self-reliant version of you that prepared for the day when no one else shows up, for the day you must stand firm alone.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more exclusive success tips. Thanks you very much.